Good morning, everyone. So 2 weeks in a row you have somebody pop up here, huh? Something's going on, right? When that happens. Well, last week, if you were at this Mass or any of the Sunday Masses, Rick Sukan of our parish addressed the Upon This Rock effort of the diocese from the perspective of a parishioner. And last weekend at the Saturday Masses I spoke. This week we flip-flop. I get the Sunday Masses and to speak about the same effort but from a different perspective. You know, a week ago, if you read the Buffalo News, on Friday, there was a beautiful article on the My View. It was written by Monsignor Robert Golumbek, good friend of mine, brother priest, entitled "Summers on the Porch Brought Us All Together." Did any of you read that article? Beautiful little article. He was reflecting back, certainly images very close to my heart as well, of growing up on the east side, and he reflected about the old neighborhood and how his family and most families would gather on the front porch, particularly in the evening, the kids playing together, adults talking to one another, family together, and brought back beautiful memories of the church being the very center of the neighborhood. He talked about his own parish, St. John Canty's, on Broadway in Swinburne, being the very center of their neighborhood, and talked about the natural community that existed there on the east side. Certainly same thing I experienced in Black Rock. The end of the article is really particularly beautiful. He writes, "Today I honor this porch because it was the center of my earliest education. Here I discovered the meaning of generosity, sharing, and companionship. And as a child I began to see how blessed to grow into a caring neighbor." He goes on, "We all lost something extraordinary when these shared neighborly hours vanished from our front porches. Instead, indoor televisions and backyard patios replaced the front porch's potential for caring togetherness that so deeply nurtured us." How many of you remember being out on the front porch in the old days? It's the way we lived. It was a beautiful time, and sometimes I reflect and think that today we are searching for the very community that we once used to have. If I go to one more seminar or meeting or read yet another book about building a community, we didn't have to do that when I was a kid. The community naturally was there, just by the way we lived. Today we do search for what we naturally once had, and we really have gone, as Monsignor said in his article so beautifully, we've gone from being a very open and front porch community to being a back deck group of people, ideally surrounded by 6 or 8 foot arborvitaes so we don't have to see one another from one deck to another. It's really true. We've gone from really calling out to one another, neighbors, friends, as they pass by from the porch to talk for a while, to, sending a text message or Snapchat or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I'm sure you've had it happen to you that someone's in the middle of a conversation. "Oh, wait a minute, my phone just went off. Hang on, I got to check this text." How many of you have ever done that or have had that done to you, huh? You're in the middle of a conversation with someone, they pull out the phone because whoever is buzzing in is far more important than you are right now, talking face to face. We really do need to look at communication. We've had the confirmation retreats, 2 of the 4. I always love doing them. We've done 2 of the overnights so far. We have 2 more to go. And I just find it to be a wonderful opportunity, first and foremost, to just spend some time with our teenagers and to learn about them and have them learn about me, to grow in understanding one another. But I also particularly look at it almost as a final exam. I don't give them a final exam to get confirmed. I don't do that. But I look at it as a final exam really to see how we have done in passing on the faith, and to see as a church community and as individual families, how we have done with this next generation ready to be confirmed. And this last two retreats were very much like the others. We have many wonderful teenagers in our parish who are just active and alive and vibrant in their faith. And on the other side, too, we have some in great need. Our community has great need. And one of the teenagers in the retreats this month said, you keep talking about prayer, but I have no idea what that is. And as he went on, he said, we don't pray at home. And he said, I really don't understand what that means. Pretty sad statement, actually, of a need in our own community here at St. Greg's. Part of the retreat was dealing on the virtues, and we were talking about the virtue of hope, the meaning of that virtue. And one of the teenagers in their small group said, I really don't think I have hope. And the individual actually broke down in tears. As she cried, she said, I really realize I don't have hope. It's a real need in our community. We live in a time of the best methods of communication, and study after study indicates that we really have one of the lowest effective levels of communication in our culture today. And most studies indicate that we have one of the highest senses of isolation in our culture today, even though artificially we feel we're so connected to one another in social media. In the depth of mind, heart, and soul, there's really great levels of isolation. There's a need for community. There's a need for that front porch. God created us not to be isolated and alone, but God created us to live in community. God himself is community. The Trinity, the triune God, Father, Son, and Spirit, God himself, the very essence of God is community. And so we're created in the same way. And so this Sunday, really important maybe to reflect for a moment on the understanding of community, your experience of community, and to maybe question where you yourself are in our community of the church. If you're on the front porch calling out to others, or maybe hiding in the back deck behind the arborvitaes. Where are you in our community of the church? It's an important question to answer, really, and it's a question we're really being called to as a diocese by Bishop Malone. Bishop Malone is calling us to what we're calling upon this rock, based on the words of Jesus to St. Peter, upon this rock I'll build my church, the jaws of death will not prevail over her. And really it's a call to be community, is what it is. The gospel today in the first reading, both we heard of the importance of humility. An important element of our spiritual life is humility. An important element of our community life is humility, to humbly state what the needs are and to humbly place our lives at the service of those needs, the essence of community. And of course, this effort certainly is about raising funds to afford proper ministry for now and the future. You heard about that last week at this Mass, but really the heart of it is the element of community here at St. Greg's, every parish of the diocese, and the church through Western New York. Since January, Father Sibby, Father Tom, myself, and a few of our parishioners have been meeting individually. Some of you have come to meet with us. And I can tell you in the meetings, and I know Father Sibby would agree, I have learned volumes. I have learned volumes about the community of St. Gregory the Great. And I've learned about individual families. I've learned about many of you and what goes on in your lives. And I've learned by what was specifically told to me, and I also learned by what has not been specifically spoken to me. And as your pastor today, I ask you, encourage you, really, in many senses beg you, to prayerfully reflect where you are in this community of St. Gregory the Great, of the Diocese of Buffalo, and the church throughout the world. Are you on the front porch calling out genuinely in humility to those in need with a desire to serve, or are we rather privatized in the back on that deck behind the arborvitaes? And I invite you to consider today to be an invitation to come to that front porch to be with our bishop as he leads us in our diocese. He's asking us not just to give of our financial resources, of course that's a small part of it, but he's really asking us to sacrifice for our church. He's asking us to sacrifice for our church. I'm 51 years old. I've lived my whole life in Erie County. I've never once been asked to sacrifice for my church. Never been asked. Well, someone said, well, you're a priest, you've sacrificed your whole life. That's not a sacrifice, that's a blessing. It's not a sacrifice. Sure, in my own parish and home in Black Rock, I've been asked to be part of renovation funds and things. That's not a sacrifice, that's routine maintenance. It's normal and ordinary. I've been asked to sacrifice for my church. I myself have made a 5-year commitment to this campaign in the diocese. I invite you to do the same, to really question what are you willing to sacrifice to be on that front porch. You know, when I first went to my first pastorate to Our Lady of Pompeii, there wasn't a youth ministry there, began one immediately. And that first summer I was there, we took our teenagers to Steubenville, to Franciscan University. Times our teenagers from St. Greg's have gone to that same youth conference. And we, of course, didn't have the resources to take them. And so I went in the pulpit and I asked for assistance. And I remember one gentleman, he's now with the Lord, George, very fine elderly gentleman, worked hard all of his life, didn't have much, was very proud of his 900 square foot ranch house that he built and paid for. He raised his family, and he was at Mass pretty much every morning. One day after Mass, he came over with his walker to the rectory. And he said, you know, for a couple years I've been saving a few dollars each month from my Social Security check because I wanted to buy a new winter coat. So, but after listening about the needs for the teenagers to go to Steubenville, he said, I think that's more important than a new winter coat. And he handed me an envelope at about $500 in cash in it. He said, please use this to help the kids go on that trip. It's a sacrifice. Sacrifice for the growth of our faith, particularly for the next generation. And that's really what our bishop is calling us to do and upon this rock. You know, very few of us built any of this. We didn't sacrifice to build this. Very few of us sacrificed really to build any of our churches. We've inherited those churches, schools, hospitals. We're being called now to sacrifice for the next chapter of ministry. In the pews, I invite you to look now, pass them down. There's these pew cards for Upon This Rock. They're at the end of the pews. There's little pencils there. I invite you to fill one of these out. It's very simple. Just ask for your name, your phone number. Through this process, we realize we do not have a lot of our parishioners' phone numbers because most people are getting rid of their landlines, you know. So it'll be helping us update our records as well. And an email address. And then to check off if you'd be willing to come to meet with one of the priests or one of our parishioner ambassadors, we're calling them. And also to check off if you'd be willing to come to a reception. We're going to have a couple larger meetings to really explain this program. So I invite you to fill this out. It'll take you not even a minute. And the ushers will come through at the end of the homily to pick these up. And as you perhaps look at filling that out, or in the coming week or so, you'll receive a letter from me inviting you also to come to one of these meetings to learn more about Upon This Rock. I ask you to really consider coming to learn the truth about what Upon This Rock is all about, and not listen perhaps to hearsay as it goes around. I also want to take a moment as you fill out that card to offer a word of thanks. First of all, a word of thanks to many of you who have already come to meet with us, and so many of you here at Mass have already come and have so generously made a gift, and I thank you for that. And a number of you who we've reached out to have yet to respond, and if we've called you and you, for whatever reason, haven't had that ability to return our call, please do so. I invite you to do that, to set up an appointment and meet with one of us. And for many of you who will receive that letter in the mail inviting you to come to one of those meetings, I invite you to do so, or to fill out this card and request to meet with one of us individually. And I thank you for doing that. Today we simply just look at all of what we have been given and where we are in the community today. Do you desire to be on the back deck hidden behind an arborvitae, or are you willing to be with our bishop on the front porch, calling out to all of those in need? I thank you, and in a moment thank the ushers for coming forward to collect these cards. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday.